Otto von Bismarck famously quipped, people who eat sausages and respect the law shouldn't watch either one being made. What he was actually talking about really was parliamentary consensus, legislature-based politics and the horse trading that gets involved, that takes place when these organs, these organizations are functioning as they're supposed to function. The whole thing is a completely revolting exercise. I don't blame anyone for being completely disgusted by it. Anything is on the table to be negotiated over. Principles be darned. It's simply a practical business where people are expected to produce certain things for the people that elected them. And if they want to get reelected, or if they don't want to get thrashed by their own constituents, they better start producing concrete results. And the best way to get concrete results in a negotiation is to be very, very realistic. So the whole thing looks horrible. Anything is on the table, as I said, and you hear conversations, or you end up, whether you like it or not, in conversations where people say, okay, this issue that is very important to my electorate, I'm willing to compromise on because I think that I can get them to forget about this, or at least forgive me for selling out on this, if you give me this concrete issue, this one concrete thing. Principles, forget it. It's not important. You're horse trading. Now I don't think there's anything that is as disgusting as that. But that's how legislatures and consensus-based organizations are designed to work. It looks awful, and it's all usually out in the open. Usually they take place in countries where there's a free press, and anyone can say the wrong thing or get caught in saying something that everyone else is saying, and pretty soon your disgusting little maneuver is common knowledge, and you're in trouble. So it looks just terrible. I've actually been involved in this kind of process for the last 15 years. For that period, I have been an officer, sometimes full-time, sometimes part-time, with the trade union that organizes the employees in my workplace. The same thing takes place. People hold grudges for eons, factions build up, people refuse to work with each other. Hatreds can last decades. The human nature seems to be that way. One of the terrible truisms that I've sort of based my view of the whole thing on, which may or may not be true, but practically, at least in terms of a survival strategy for myself, I've always assumed that given the choice between cooperating and getting some of what we want, people would prefer to fight and get either everything that they want, very unlikely, or get nothing. People seem to consciously choose the second one. I don't know why. Maybe anger and rage and hatred even is a greater motivating factor than the desire to actually benefit, to get a concrete benefit in a situation like that. Not that these people don't have legitimate concerns, but when you have an organization that purports, at least, to mix idealism with practicality, inevitably you're going to get this. You're going to get a lot of people that get disgusted with the whole thing, because the union always talks, fair deal for everybody. We're doing the right thing here. We represent the little guy, this sort of thing. But all that disgusting, sordid negotiating has to take place because there are practical issues that have to be dealt with. You're dealing with people's pension plans, with benefits, with people that may be losing their job for reasons that they don't want everyone else to know. One of the worst things that you tend to get in trouble for is a person who may have personal problems that they're keeping to themselves, or there might be issues where that no one knows about because they are personal, but they're generally viewed in the workplace as a malcontent or a troublesome or a lazy employee. The company deals with them, fires them, or whatever, and you sit down with the company and negotiate, and you share information with the company with the consent of the person who's been fired or whatever. The company reconsiders and say, okay, we understand why this person did this, that, or the other, but they still need to be punished. So we'll make sure that we cut a deal saying that if they ever do this ever again, they'll be fired again with no right of appeal. So the union sort of gets their job back. And everyone else in the workplace goes, you got that jerk's job back? Oh, this is disgusting. Unions. Even though they're all card-carrying members of the same union. And you tend to look bad for about things like that, but you can't even really defend yourself because the information that the person has given you is strictly confidential. So you can't say, look, you don't know the entire picture. You can't even really say that. But the person may have perfectly valid reasons for, or not really valid, but understandable reasons for what they did. And ultimately, at the end of the day, the final sanction to this sort of thing is you go to arbitration. If it's like going to court. It's like a lawyer cutting a deal with the prosecutor. You sort of say, okay, listen, shall we take our chances with the jury, or will we cut a deal here? It's the same thing. It's very, 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 very similar. So again, the legal system with its deal cutting and horse trading looks disgusting when you get inside of it. When you see it from the inside, lawyers are famously slick and disgusting people. Well, stereotypically, I suppose, but they're a necessary part of our judicial system. I actually, as an aside, I was once getting a passport photograph notarized, and I went into a lawyer's office to get that done. And there was a bunch of smart aleck, slick young lawyers with their $2,000 suits on and Italian shoes, and they were kind of funny kind of guys. They were all telling lawyer jokes about what eels lawyers are and how hearse chasers and ambulance chasers and just encouraging people to sue their grandmothers and everything. And I said, I bet I'm in a job that's more hated than you guys. And they said, oh, no way. Nobody is more hated than lawyers. I said, I'm a full-time union officer. They said, you're right. So it's a thankless job. And one wonders sometimes why one ever gets involved. But I think if you're the sort of person that has emotional stamina and can deal with year in, year out petty quarrels, and you don't take it very personally, you'll last at least. Maybe you won't go anywhere, but you'll avoid having your spirit broken or your whole view of humanity flushed down the toilet. So far, I still seem reasonably untouched by the extreme bitterness that sometimes creeps into people when they get involved in consensus politics. I've also formed the opinion that we don't really have any other way of dealing with the reality of the situation, i.e. when you have an idealistic organization with practical issues to deal with, the two collide all the time and it looks horrible. And also at the back of everyone's mind is this conviction that if it ever gets to be too much, you can opt out. Any person who's a citizen of a democratic country or a member of a democratic union, and by the way, I'm not talking about the smelly kind of corrupt kind of mafia kind of unions. There's a few around, but I can say quite categorically they're in the extreme minority. There's no more corrupt unions than there are corrupt companies, but that's not saying much about companies. But anyway, when you have things like that, invariably people think that they can just say, oh, to heck with it, I don't care anymore, I'm just going to look after number one. But they're the very first people that come back and start screaming when the union does something that they don't like. So, in a way, just like any people has the government that it deserves, that's another old saying, that if whatever government any country happens to have is ultimately the one that the people deserve, whether it's a dictatorship or a democracy or whatever. In a union, people have the leadership that they deserve. You get what you put into it. If you are constantly on top of your union leadership and screaming at them and holding them to account to every last thing that they ever do, and you watch what's going on all the time, you get a very effective, moderate usually, union, and clean, very clean. But if you're the sort that sort of says, I don't much care what they do, and in fact they're all jerks, I'm not interested, it's just the whole thing is disgusting, that invariably encourages entrenched leadership, corrupt leadership, this sort of thing. If you don't want to play by the rules of consensus politics, short of completely abolishing the entire thing, which won't work either, because we all know that cooperation gets you a lot more than everyone acting individually, then what you get is a dictatorship. You don't get libertarianism or freedom or anarchy or whatever. What you get, if people refuse to work together, is dictatorship. I don't think anyone wants that. So ultimately, if people don't like political debates, if people don't like horse trading of representative consensus-based politics, or if people don't like unions, or if they don't like any organization that is ultimately democratic, are they saying that they like dictatorship better? Communism, Nazism, fundamentalist, religious-based organizations, ideologically based organizations tend not to be democratic. Corporations, big companies, tend not to be democratic, and everything seems to look smooth and seamless on the inside. I guarantee you it's just as corrupt as a democratic organization, probably much more, and a lot more dangerous. At least when you see the sausage factory, you're watching it happen. In a dictatorship, it's worse, but it's just hidden from view. Thank you.